Hello, everybody, and welcome back to College Football Corner. Kevin Walsh alongside Jersey Joe Archino, breaking down everything going on in the college football world. Let's start with Tennessee, Florida here. This is a big game, a lot of eyes on this one, and we were kind of saying to ourselves that whichever team gets the win here can really emerge as a true SEC contender. The way it started off, Florida looks great. Tennessee, though, they closed that second half, and they get themselves a big victory. What'd you see?
Well, you know me from listening to this show that Tennessee's been one of those programs that has really infuriated me this season. But you have to say about them, they are so resilient. They outscored Florida 35-3 in the second half of this football game. I think you got to give a lot of credit to Josh Dobbs, their quarterback, the resiliency that he has shown, especially in the second half of all these games. I mean, look, they struggled against Appalachian State. They struggled the next week. They struggled after that. But they keep on finding ways to pull out wins. The thing that for me that I'm still waiting from Tennessee to see is where's that signature performance? Where's that performance from start to finish that I can get my hands around and say, this is why Tennessee is a top-tier team in the SEC, and not just the SEC, but in college football. I think having resiliency is a tremendous thing, which they have. They just need to be able to do it from start to finish.
Yeah, and they've obviously been able to kind of close the gap in a lot of these games, and obviously they closed in the second half. Butch Jones gets a lot of credit here. Obviously, he switched the game plan. Did you get a lot of encouragement coming out to see how they were able to switch so easily in the second half?
I do, and Butch Jones is a guy where I give him a lot of credit for what he's done for this Tennessee program. He has a certain just a way that he conducts himself, a confidence about himself that extends to his players. And we've seen his team be down in almost every situation they've been in so far this season. But they've always found a way to get their resilience back, compose themselves, and finish the game out. And I think that really stems directly from Butch Jones, who's been the leader of this team.
Good stuff for Butch Jones. We traveled to a game, though, that obviously resulted in some bad stuff for one head coach. Auburn LSU, 18-13, Auburn gets the win. Obviously, this is the final undoing of Les Miles, but we'll get there. Let's just start with Auburn. This is a big win for this team. We spoke about how much they've been struggling. Could this be a momentum builder for them to maybe make some noise down the stretch?
Look, this was a game where both coaches, this really could have made both of them get fired. Whoever lost this game, you really could have seen both of them, just their seats become even more hotter than it was. Auburn certainly has to take a lot away from this game because that's a very difficult game for them. Being at home, defending their confidence, their way that they conduct themselves in the SEC. A lot was at stake here. Gus Malzahn's reputation was at stake here. The offense's reputation was at stake here. But they were able to compose themselves, and they found the victory here. I still don't trust this Auburn team enough. I just think offensively, they just don't have that running quarterback, and they don't have a guy who can consistently throw the ball enough. Defensively, they are tremendously better this year. But I think as a whole package, Auburn's just missing some things here and there, which make them a real contender.
You look on the other side of the ball for LSU. I mean, the season's pretty much over. They already got 2 losses. They've been bad losses at the time that they have happened. And it's cost Les Miles his job. What do you think about the decision to let him go? And how do you feel about LSU moving forward?
It's a difficult thing. Les Miles is the most winning coach in LSU history, and that's a program that's done a lot of great things. He's won a lot of meaningful games. I think the biggest reason he got fired is basically because of the last 5 seasons. The last 5 times they played Alabama, they have lost. And the most important thing of all, which we've talked about on this show time after time, is Les Miles just hasn't been able to find a quarterback. You stack his teams up from position-wise, from the receiver to defensive personnel, all over the place. He has toe-for-toe some of the best players in the country. Just look at the guys he's been putting out in the NFL. But the one position he has not been able to address is quarterback. He has not been able to find a guy. I think that's one of the big reasons he hasn't been able to beat Alabama, and he just hasn't been able to beat a lot of these other big SEC teams. But look, he could still coach my program any day of the week. If I need a head coach, I'm picking up my phone right now and calling him.
The irony in Les Miles' undoing being not having a quarterback. We go to Brian Kelly, who has a quarterback. Deshaun Kaiser's as good as it gets in college football, but they take a shocking loss to Duke. Let's start with the Blue Devils. How much credit do you give this team for being able to get this win against Notre Dame?
Look, I love the way this program is going. I mean, you think you have to look at Duke, and the man whose name is at the top of it is Dave Cutcliffe. Dave Cutcliffe is a guy who's been there for 9 seasons. It didn't start out easy for him. I mean, this is a program where we all know it's a basketball school. I mean, all the things Coach K has done there. But Dave Cutcliffe is kind of changing that. He's recruiting real football players. They're winning games. He won 10 games just a few seasons ago, 9 after that, 8 after that. And this season, I mean, this win against the Irish is a huge one. But Dave Cutcliffe is a guy who's done a lot of great things throughout his career. I think he's got his blueprint on this program. And to go in and beat a historic program like Notre Dame like this, it's just another one of those things that says so much about this special talent and this special football coach.
Now for Notre Dame, 1-3 on the season. They're just going to look to play spoiler really the rest of the way. But how do you feel about Brian Kelly's job security for the remainder of the season or even at the season's end?
You know, it's funny. You asked me a question just similar to this last week, and I wasn't totally off the Brian Kelly thing, but I think you would really have to look at this program as a whole. You look at the problems that they came into the season with, off-season trouble with certain players, and you have to ask the question seriously now, has Brian Kelly lost the Irish? I think Brian Kelly's a tremendous coach, but sometimes things happen and you can lose your grip over a program. And I think you could kind of tell based on the way that his comments were made after the game. I really do feel he's losing his grip over this program. And the talk is only going to intensify now that a guy like Les Miles is on the market if Brian Kelly's days there are numbered. But I think he's got a tremendously talented quarterback. But on the offensive line, the defensive line, other personnel groupings, I think there's a lot left to be desired there. But to me, you have to start to say that Brian Kelly is losing this program.
For me as well, seeing this Notre Dame loss kind of gives us some insight into why this Wisconsin-Michigan State matchup ended the way it did. We both went Michigan State. We both felt confident. 30-6, Wisconsin. Perhaps Notre Dame just wasn't that good, and perhaps Michigan State just wasn't that good, but Wisconsin looks terrific.
They absolutely do, and I think, look, we all read way too much into that Notre Dame victory for Michigan State. It just really, I think you see now, based on the way Notre Dame continues to struggle, that Michigan State maybe isn't as good as we thought, but Wisconsin certainly is. Wisconsin starts their season with a win against LSU. Now they're able to pull off a big win against the Spartans, and now they've got a big test coming up this weekend. But again, I want to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff there. Paul Chryst has done a tremendous job with this program. It's a program where they don't necessarily get the best quarterback play, but they do a lot of good things in all the other phases. And sometimes when you don't have the best at one position, you've really got to compensate in other areas. And Paul Chryst is a guy where he really does a good job of getting his other team, his other elements to really come together strong for him.
And we will definitely carry on with Wisconsin when we do our pick'ems. The last game, though, that we want to recap, Stanford against UCLA here. Stanford, a grinded-out victory. The Pac-12 is really looking brutal this year. Just a lot of good football teams. So, no, the scoreline not big for Stanford, but I came away impressed. How about you?
Absolutely. Stanford, to me, I mean, what they've done with that program, what David Shaw has continued from what Jim Harbaugh left there is just nothing short of tremendous. The toughness that they show in a play-in, play-out basis is just second to none in the country. I think defensively, offensively, everybody they have, they just have this edge about them. And the Pac-12 is kind of a conference known for flinging the ball down the field, open air raid offenses. But Stanford does it, and they've always done it behind toughness and behind composure. And this is another game where against a rival in that conference to pull out a big road win, winning it in the end. And that's one of the things that impresses me the most about Stanford is year after year, these past couple seasons, it just seems like when it comes to being composed at the end of games, they really are one of the best teams in the country. That comes down to coaching, and David Shaw deserves a lot of credit for that.
Now, I really want to talk, though, before we get into the pick'ems about Josh Rosen. This is our guy. I mean, since last year, we have really fallen in love with this kid, but I'm starting to worry perhaps that we put him too far up on a pedestal. And I mean, obviously, it's not just us that Rosen's hearing. He's hearing it all over the place. This kid has some serious turnover issues, and he has a year of college football after this one to really figure things out. But I'm starting to wonder if it's time for me to jump ship here. I just don't know how I feel about Rosen.
Look, I've had those similar doubts when I look at Josh Rosen, when I look at the way he's played so far this season. there has been regression there, and he's still very young. But I think sometimes he is a super talent. Do not dispute that for a second. But sometimes with these super talents, we're seeing it in the NFL with Andrew Luck now as well. I think sometimes when these rare breeds of quarterback come, they just have so much on their plate early, and they just trust their arms so much that sometimes they just take those chances that we wouldn't like them to take sometimes. Rosen on the season has 5 touchdowns. He has 4 interceptions behind those touches. UCLA has had a brutal schedule to start the year. Against Texas A&M to start their season, against Stanford early. So I think when you look at it, Rosen's faced some stiff competition, but I do think the turnovers will be cut down eventually because he's too smart of a football player not to. But there has been some regression there.
All right, let's get into these pick'ems. I mean, another slate of games that just leaves you drooling. College football, I appreciate you. Stanford Washington here. This is the Pac-12 showdown. This right now, this could be the game that gives you not only a Pac-12 champion, but a Final Four team come playoff time. Who do you got?
People raved about Washington coming into the season. I read a lot of people I respect and I really value their opinions in the industry who picked them to outright win the Pac-12. And I do think they will win this game against Stanford. I love Stanford. I can't give them enough praise. But when you go on the road 2 weeks in a row, and remember, this is a short week for Stanford getting ready for a Friday game. This is a very difficult Pac-12 test for them. I think Washington, their offense plays very quickly. They really are going to want to speed it up. And we have seen Stanford give teams like that a lot of trouble. But Washington is home. Washington, and whenever you're the home team on a short week like this, you definitely have a big advantage. I'm going with Washington over Stanford.
I'm going with Stanford in this one. You know how much I love McCaffrey, and he's just such a difference maker. But for me, Stanford is the battle-tested team out of this group. They were chomping at the bit last year. They were so close. I believe they finished 6th in the final rankings of the AP poll. I think that the Pac-12 is going to be theirs this year, and that means that they need to win this game, and I think that they do. Now, an SEC matchup that's quite interesting. Tennessee, the team that you are sitting here, even before the show we were talking, you don't know what to do with this team. You want to pick them, you don't want to pick them. They're going up against Georgia, who just got punched in the mouth by Ole Miss. Who do you have in this one?
You know, it just seems like it would be set up so perfectly. Georgia gets thumped by Ole Miss, and then they come into this game at home. You would think that they've got revenge all over their minds, but I just am not ready to jump ship on Tennessee. I have told you on this show that the losses are coming, and I still think that they will. Tennessee's got a brutal section of their schedule, which is very close at hand. But I just think I look at them right now, and I look at Kirby Smart and everything he's done with Georgia, and he's still figuring it out as a head coach. He's got a lot of experience, but he's still figuring it out. And Tennessee, to me, although I'm still not totally on board with them, the one thing you have to say about them is they're resilient. And when you can pull out wins like this in the SEC and save your best for last, I think on the road, they've got a chance here. I do think Georgia, if I'm going to pick an upset of the week, it would be Georgia getting it done over them. But I still think Tennessee has enough to win this game.
Similar to you, I was kind of back and forth on this one. But for me, last week, Tennessee down 21-3 at half. Them being home is what allows them the opportunity to come back and steal that game. You're not going to be 21-3 down at half on the road and come back and get a win. For me, Georgia, I picked them to beat Ole Miss. That was a mistake, but I still think there's a lot of talent there, and I think that they beat Tennessee. Michigan, Wisconsin. Now, this is a really good game here. I think it's a game that when we originally looked at the schedule, we thought, just another check win for Michigan. No problem here for Jim Harbaugh. He's got a big test on his hands, and Wisconsin is actually the battle-tested team of this group with big wins over LSU and Michigan State. Who do you like?
You know, I am a little worried about Michigan in this game because, like you've alluded to, they really haven't been tested so far this season. They struggled for a half against Colorado. That's about it. But other than that, they've really railed off and thumped all the opponents that they played. I do think Wisconsin presents a lot of challenges, and Michigan, unlike Ohio State, they're not as gifted offensively. They run the ball maybe just as good, but offensively, when it comes to throwing the football, they're definitely nowhere near as good as Ohio State is. So if a game like this does turn into a passing game, I do think Michigan is at a disadvantage. But with that said, with the defensive personnel that Harbaugh has to work with at Michigan, it's just one of those most impressive groupings of talent in the country. And I think that's the reason they're able to gut out a win like this. A tough, physical game. I've got Michigan.
I mean, yeah, and I have Michigan as well for a lot of the reasons that you said. Wisconsin is much better than what I thought, but I still think that they are slightly below Michigan. Plus, Michigan being home, I think that's going to be a big advantage for them. I'm really just looking down the schedule. I can't help. I know it's a bit away, but that final game, Ohio State-Michigan, it really could be. I mean, that could be a 1-2 battle by the time we get there, but we'll see. But I'm going with Michigan this one. Now, we put Missouri, LSU on the slate. Obviously, these are a pair of unranked teams at this point, but there's no Les Miles in this game. It is an interesting game. Do you think LSU can get the victory here?
Yeah, I think the reason we wanted to put this on the schedule is we want to talk about Ed Orgeron. Ed Orgeron is a guy where he was kind of in a similar situation at USC. Lane Kiffin got the boot, and then he got put into this program, and the players absolutely loved him. The players on that team, they advocated for him to get the coaching job. Now, obviously, we know Steve Sarkisian got the coaching job there, but the players were very vocal. They loved Ed Orgeron. I think he's a player's coach. He's a guy that's very easy to get bought into, and there's still so much talent on this LSU team. Like, they don't have a quarterback, but they've got a stud running back in Leonard Fournette we can't forget about. They've got great talent on the outside. They've got great defensive personnel. I think they can rally to Ed Orgeron's side and finish off this season with maybe only a loss, one more loss, or two more losses at most. But when you look at the circumstances that LSU is facing, if they only lose one or two more games, not the worst.
For me, man, that loss last week was heartbreaking because if that touchdown stood, you could see it. That could have been the defining moment for LSU where they run off a bunch of victories and maybe they get that upset against Alabama. Obviously, clock ticks, no touchdown, no Les Miles, new coach. I think that on a much more extreme scale, similar to in baseball, when a manager gets tossed out of a game, it's this kind of move here can really fire up a bunch, and then sometimes you hold yourself accountable, and I think that's what LSU will do. At home, I think they're actually going to thrash Missouri here. I think it's a big win for LSU. Final game. I cannot remember a quarterback battle this anticipated probably ever. I haven't been around that long, so maybe that's why, but Clemson, Louisville, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson. I mean, what more could you ask for? This game's at Death Valley. Does Lamar Jackson continue to roll?
Make no mistake, this is the game of the week. You can put infinity exclamation marks after that. I am so excited for this game. And when you look at it from a numbers standpoint, Lamar Jackson is the easy guy to pick out. 13 touchdowns through the air, 12 touchdowns on the ground. He is a dual threat in every sense of the word. He has been phenomenal. But to me, Deshaun Watson is still the better quarterback. The numbers do not make my argument for me. He has only a couple touchdowns, 4 picks on the year for him. It's been a difficult struggle for him. But with that said, Deshaun Watson, to me, the composure he showed last year, he's shown an ability in big games. Lamar Jackson hasn't been in a big game like this. We thought Florida State was going to be the big game for him. It turns out it wasn't. But this is it. This is in a very hostile environment. This is against Dabo Swinney, who's been on a big stage in a big game like this before. I'm going with Clemson. The numbers don't go in my favor. But I think at home, Deshaun Watson puts together the signature performance he needs, and they get the win.
I think it's pretty interesting here. You date back to last season, Leonard Fournette, all eyes on this kid. He's the Heisman lock. He's the Heisman lock. Then he runs into Alabama. And like that, it's like his season was over. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen to Lamar Jackson here. The ball's in his hands too frequently for him to fall off. But I think going to Death Valley, a place that it just doesn't feel like Clemson is going to lose at. And I just think that Deshaun Watson, I think for him, coming into the year, Heisman frontrunner, passed up by a mile by this kid. I know that he's been closely watching Lamar Jackson. He's certainly been listening to the criticism, and this is his game. This is the game for Deshaun Watson to make his statement, and I think he does. I'm going with Clemson. But, I mean, what a terrific slate of games. We will be back next week to recap all of them and then preview what I'm sure should be another great week of games in college football. Kevin Walsh, Jersey Joe Archino. We'll see you guys next week.